old were you when you joined the Army?
Oh my, let's see, I just finished nurses training, 41, I joined in 42.
Okay.
42. Mm-hmm.
And what was it that made you want to do that?
Well, it was Pearl Harbor, and the report of that Pearl Harbor had been bombed came over the radio, and we were just, everybody was horrified. And I just remember that instant so well, and I'm wondering, how could this happen? And so in a few days we got the report, or they got the letters from the Red Cross asking us to join the Army Red Cross, I guess it was, or something like that. And because then it changed from year to year. And several of us did sign up. I went on, and I, after I'd finished my makeup time at the hospital, I did go into the service, and then it was just Army Nurse Corps. Then it became, later on, became Army, Air Force nurses, or something similar to that. And we went first to, when I say we, this friend of mine and I who met on the train, and we went to Camp Crowder, which was just a new base that was being built. And from there, we were transferred to St. Louis. From St. Louis, some of us went to Bowman Field, which was the flight nurse training school. And so we went through the course there, which included all phases of nursing that would need to be done on a flight with patients. And a lot of it was sort of extraneous. We didn't really need to do it. One thing that I thought was a little bit above and beyond was going through the infiltration course, in which we had to more or less crawl on our stomachs to get under the wire, which was about 2 feet off the ground, and had live fire going above our heads. And we'd be crawling along with our noses to the ground, and all of a sudden there'd be a bone with blood on it. And we just we just laughed it off, and well, this is kind of silly. But anyhow, that was part of the training. And then the bivouacs and the marching and the parades and all that sort of stuff, and standing at attention, and the calisthenics, and working in the hospital too, but when there was time. And so those were the courses at Bowman Field, which was one of the first classes that I believe, because that was in 1943, and we had two of the nurses that had been in the Bataan and Corregidor events, and they had been working as flight nurses before, but they came back to go through the Bowman Field course, and so that was quite a privilege. There was I think Margaret Ann Ritchie was one of them, and Lucy Wilson another one, and Lucy wrote a very great book about her experiences. But thinking of how those girls worked, and of course when we were there, when we were doing the flight nurse work, and this was after we were transported to Africa, and I say we again because there were 6 of us in the flight, and we went to West Africa, and from there we flew to there were legs of the evacuation flights to Karachi, India, and then back, of course, and then and this was all taking patients that were on the planes, and sometimes they were really sick, and sometimes they weren't. But they did include a nurse, and there were always male attendant, ward man or something like that, and after, and sometimes we had to go, we'd take patients across to Brazil, because that was the extent of our tour. And then we'd deadhead back on, excuse me, did head back to Accra, which was our home base, and then pick up and go from one area to another. So primarily it was from Accra, which was in Ghana, to Khartoum. We were also stationed there for a while, and of course, looking back, thinking of what's been going on there, it's just phenomenal. And then to Karachi. At that time, it was India. Now it's Nepal, I believe. And that was pretty much our tour. And of course, there were a lot of incidents of a lot of fun things and a lot of experiences that it would never ever have had any other way. But seeing the countries, the people, and all that was super.
How old were you when you first joined?
I would have been 23, and then I served for a total of 3 years and some months. And after we came back from Africa, and I, in the meantime, had 3 flights to the Holy Lands, which were highlights of my tour too. And after coming back to the States, we were stationed at Mitchell Field in New York, and that was at the time of the Battle of the Bulge. That was where we saw our heaviest duty, because the patients, the young fellows that were coming back, were directly from the war zone. You know, they didn't have time to treat them over there because there were so many. So they'd put the ones that they put on the planes and sent them directly to Mitchell. And then from Mitchell Field, they were taken to bases closest to their homes. And so we flew all over the States that way. And then after we finished at Mitchell Field, we went on to Memphis and flew out of there for doing the same sorts of things, you know, just transporting patients from, or being, not, we didn't transport them, the planes did, and we attended them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that was about it.
Going back for a second, Doris, as a young lady, when you met these nurses who had been through the Baton March and whatnot, did you guys consider them to be heroes?
Definitely.
Were they somebody you looked up to?
Very definitely.
Tell me about that.
Very definitely. Well, they'd been through so much that they were just tired, and then going through the training again. But yes, they were, but still just very gung-ho, you know, just appreciating what they were able to do, and they were truly, truly heroes.
Knowing what they had gone through, did it scare you in terms of what you ladies might be going through at some point?
No. Mm-mm. Because I don't know why. There was no fear at all. The only time, no, I don't think there ever was any fear, because we knew we were doing it. And of course, we were not in any real war zones. We were just flying over this route, which was pretty interesting because the British government had mapped out this route over or had asked Pan Am Airlines to prepare this route because they needed easier access to the people in India, the China-Burma area. And so we then, when the war broke out, they turned it over to the ATC, the Army Transport Command, and so that's why we were able to use this route that had already been established.
What kind of, did you use Dakotas or B-24s? Do you remember what kind of planes you guys used?
They were C-47s, you know, the little tin cans which bounced around all over the place. Yeah.
How many patients could you hold on a flight? Do you remember?
I think there could be about, there were two rows of, they call them the bucket seats along each side. If we had litter patients, which were the ones that were on litters, they could be stacked up like 5 high. But it wasn't very often that we did that. And then the ones that were returning from the China-Burma area were transported on DC-3s, I think. But they were like commercial airlines with nice seats and everything, and so they were comfortable.
What would you say was the most challenging part of your job?
I suppose just the flying sometimes could get a little sickening, to say the least, and just to be concerned about the patients, to see that they were. Unfortunately, they were so sad because they'd been through so much, and the China-Burma area was not a pleasant place either. It wasn't the kind of stuff we hear about of the European campaigns, but it was tough, and so they were very, very subdued, very tired, and it was sad.
Yeah. Was it, for as young as you were, could you think of something to say as far as not cheering someone up, but at least comforting?
Just try to let them talk if they wanted to, yeah. But sometimes they didn't even want to talk. There was just one young man that I remember specifically, and he was from the Battle of the Bulge area, and he was very, very excited about it because he had just escaped from some of the Nazis and the European or the German people, and he thought he was hiding in a little hut or something like that, and he kept moving around. This was his story. He kept moving around as he could see the troops going around the building, and so he was out of sight, and finally they left, and then he was out of there. So, and I just remember him because he was so pleased and so happy that he had escaped. Yeah.
When you look back on these young men, are they heroes, do you think?
Certainly.
They're all
they're all heroes. We don't know what they went through, but they didn't come back crying and moaning and groaning or being angry. They just did it. And yes, they were all heroes. Yeah.
How about the young ladies who took care of them on planes and in hospitals? Were they heroes?
Well, not really. I mean, they didn't do too much. I mean, I'm speaking for myself because my tour, it wasn't like being at the front line. And we used to say, well, we certainly got we're on the gravy train.
Just for the record,
you're bouncing around in a tin can up there.
I don't know. You're taking care of injuries. There's a lot of people of my generation that would think that you young ladies were heroes as well.
Well,
that's what I think.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
How do you think your wartime experience impacted the rest of your life?
Well, it was a time of my life that I would never, ever in my whole life expect. I mean, I had no idea what it was about. But it was about life and death. It was about people, and people wanting to help others, and the bonding. Because as I say, there were 6 of us in the flight that I was in, and we had 6 corpsmen because they went with each nurse on a plane, and there was a flight surgeon, and that was our little group. And some of the nurses were with much larger groups, but we in particular had special bonding. That was retained afterward for years.
Almost like the crews that flew the B-17s 24, there was 10 of them together, up against the air and everything else, and it becomes sort of a very tight knit. Yeah. What would you say is your fondest memory, if you have one?
I don't think there's one in particular. I believe one flying back, deadheading from Brazil to Accra, the plane that I was in, and I don't believe there maybe was another passenger, but it was mainly just cargo. You got the first plane out that you could to get back to the home base, and I was sitting in the one available seat, I guess it was, and looked down and I could see the water below because there was a big hole in the floor or the bottom of the plane. And then I noticed that one of the engines was on fire. And so I thought, oh my goodness, I have to tell somebody about this. So I finally saw somebody, and I did, and he said, "Oh, that's okay. We've still got 3." But that was, there wasn't any flak or anything around. It was just the ocean and a little fire. But still, in all, I remember that. And I thought, oh well.
We got 3 other engines.
Yeah.
If you had to do it over again, would you? And when you look at your life and know everything you went through, would you sign up again?
Oh, sure. It was an adventure of a lifetime. You learn a lot about the world, about people, about war, how nasty it is.
If there was something you could say to military nurses now, what would that be?
Well, just go for it and just get the most out of it you can. It's not a thing of getting. It's giving, and being there. What little you can do, and each individual can do just so much, because there's so much misery connected with it. Yeah.
Did you stay in touch with any of the young men that you helped, or did any of them, or did you ever run into them?
No. No. Now I we have a Veterans of Foreign Wars group in the little town where I live, and so we have a group that's been doing breakfast to make funds for helping the Veterans Hospital, and it's interesting. People are, it's something we can do to help them. Yeah, because there's so many of them that are left by the wayside, more or less. And the Veterans hospitals are sad. Any hospital is sad.